Rain poured relentlessly as Emma rushed to help the elderly man struggling to hail a cab, her nurse's instincts kicking in despite being off the clock. "Emma Sullivan," the man whispered, his weathered hand trembling as he gripped her arm, eyes widening with a recognition that sent chills down her spine. He knew her name from a time she had spent decades trying to forget. The coincidence seemed impossible in a city of millions, yet here stood the father of the little boy who had once been her only friend in the foster system before tragedy tore them apart. As the taxi's headlights illuminated their faces through the downpour, decades of buried memories surged to the surface of secret hideaways and abandoned playgrounds, of whispered promises to never leave each other, and of the horrific accident that had claimed his son's life while Emma watched helplessly. What connection had brought them together again after 30 years, and what dark secret was he desperate to reveal before time ran out? Like and subscribe to our channel if this story touched your heart, and share your own experiences of unexpected reunions in the comments below. Emma's hands trembled as she unlocked her apartment door, her mind racing with questions. The rain had soaked through her scrubs, but she barely noticed. She flipped on the lights in her modest one-bedroom apartment and kicked off her squeaking shoes. The business card lay damp between her fingers. Dr. Harold Green, MD PhD, Emeritus, an address in Westbrook Heights, the affluent neighborhood across town, was printed beneath, along with a phone number. Harold Green. The name had haunted the edges of her memory for nearly 30 years. Emma peeled off her wet clothes and stepped into a hot shower, letting the water cascade over her as fragments of memories surfaced. Michael Green's smile, his mischievous laugh, the way he'd slip her an extra dessert when the caretakers weren't looking. "I promised I'd always protect you," Michael had told her once, in their secret hideout at Westridge Home for Children. But then he was gone. An accident, they'd said. No details. Just gone, leaving 8-year-old Emma alone again. After her shower, Emma pulled her damp hair into a messy bun and made a cup of tea. The clock on her microwave blinked. 11:42 p.m., too late to call anyone, but sleep felt impossible. She dialed anyway. "This better be good, Sullivan," Diane answered, her voice thick with interrupted sleep. "Sorry, Dee, something happened today. Something weird." Emma explained the encounter, her voice catching when she described how the old man had recognized her. "He just knew you." "After all these years?" Diane asked. "He called me by name. Said something about Michael and promises before the cab pulled away, and this Michael was ... my only friend at Westridge. We were inseparable for those 2 years. Then, he died, and a week later I was transferred to another home." The line went quiet for a moment. "You should call him, Emma. Whatever this is, you need closure." After hanging up, Emma sat motionless on her couch, staring at the business card. Finally, she walked to her closet and pulled down a shoebox from the top shelf, only tangible connection to her childhood. She hadn't opened it in years. Her fingers hovered over the lid, but she couldn't bring herself to lift it. Not yet. Instead, she crawled into bed, setting the business card on her nightstand. Sleep evaded her as rain continued to patter against her window, each drop an echo of the past she'd tried so hard to leave behind. Dawn crept through Emma's blinds, finding her already awake. She hadn't slept more than an hour at a stretch, haunted by half-remembered dreams of a boy with sandy brown hair and a gap-toothed smile. The shoebox sat on her bed now, its cardboard edges worn soft with time. Emma took a deep breath and removed the lid. Inside lay the few precious items she'd managed to keep through 16 different foster placements: a faded blue ribbon from her first spelling bee, a small stuffed rabbit missing one eye, a chipped marble, and, at the bottom, a stack of Polaroid photos. With careful fingers, she lifted the photos. The first showed 2 children, around 8 years old, sitting on a rusted swing set. The girl, skinny with wild curls and suspicious eyes, was Emma. Beside her, a boy with an arm slung around her shoulders grinned widely at the camera. "Michael, Mrs. Winters took this," Emma whispered to herself, remembering the kind social worker who'd visited Westridge monthly. She'd been the only adult who seemed to see the children as more than just paperwork. The next photo showed Emma and Michael beneath their secret hideout, a hollow space beneath the stairwell where they'd stashed treasures and whispered secrets. They were holding up childish drawings. Emma's face caught mid-laugh. Her throat tightened as she flipped to the last Polaroid. Michael standing proudly beside a birthday cake with 8 candles. Emma stood shyly beside him, wearing a party hat. It was the only birthday party she'd had during those years. 2 weeks after that photo was taken, Mrs. Winters had arrived with red-rimmed eyes to tell Emma that Michael had been in an accident. He didn't make it. No further explanation. Emma had screamed and cried, but information was deemed unnecessary for an 8-year-old foster child. The next week, she was transferred to a group home across the city. She never even learned where Michael was buried. Now, 30 years later, his father had appeared like a ghost from her past. Emma returned the photos to the box. Her decision made, she reached for her phone and dialed the number on the business card, heart hammering against her ribs. "Green residence," answered a woman with a slight accent. "May I speak with Dr. Green, please? It's Emma Sullivan." A pause. 1 moment. Emma waited, gripping the stuffed rabbit from her box, its remaining button. I stared back at her accusingly. Why had she waited so long? "Miss Sullivan." The tremulous voice was unmistakable. "I hoped you would call, Dr. Green." Her voice faltered. "I'd like to talk about Michael." "Yes," he said softly. "It's time." Westbrook Heights sprawled across the north side of the city, its tree-lined streets showcasing mansions behind ornate gates. Emma felt out of place in her modest sedan, navigating past homes that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. She checked the address again, before turning into a curved driveway. A colonial-style mansion with pristine white columns stood before her, surrounded by meticulously manicured gardens. Emma's hands tightened around the steering wheel as she parked. "Just a house," she murmured to herself, stepping out. Before she reached the door, it swung open. A woman in her 60s with silver-streaked black hair and watchful eyes stood in the entrance. "Miss Sullivan," she said, her voice matching the one from the phone. "I am Rosa. Please come in." The foyer gleamed with marble floors and a crystal chandelier. Family photos lined an antique console table, but Emma couldn't bring herself to look at them yet. "Dr. Green is in the sunroom," Rosa said, leading Emma through the house. Her tone wasn't exactly unfriendly, but Emma sensed reservation in every syllable. The sunroom overlooked an expansive backyard with an empty swimming pool. Potted plants surrounded a hospital-grade bed where Harold Green reclined, a thin blanket over his legs. A medical monitor beeped quietly beside him. "You came," he said, his smile transforming his gaunt face. His hands trembled continuously. Emma recognized immediately. "I did." Emma approached cautiously. "Please, sit." He gestured to a chair beside the bed. "Rosa, would you bring us some tea?" Rosa nodded, her eyes lingering on Emma with unmistakable suspicion before she left. "She's protective," Harold explained. "Been with me for 40 years, since before Michael," Emma said softly. Harold's eyes shimmered with tears. "Yes. She helped raise him after my wife died." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. "Dr. Green." "Harold, please." "Harold," Emma amended. "You recognized me yesterday." "How?" He reached for a side table drawer, his movements jerky and imprecise. Emma instinctively helped him, opening it to reveal a photograph. "Michael kept this by his bed," Harold said. It was another Polaroid. Ma hadn't seen this one before, showing her and Michael making silly faces at the camera. "He talked about you constantly," Harold continued. His best friend Emma with the curly hair, who was braver than anyone. Emma's throat constricted. "I wasn't brave. He thought you were." Harold's gaze drifted past her. "Would you like to see his room?" The question startled her. "His room? I've kept it the same." Something about the old man's mixture of grief and hope made it impossible to refuse. On the second floor, Harold led her to a closed door, his steps slow and measured. "Take your time," he said, opening it before retreating down the hall. Emma stepped inside and froze. The room was a perfectly preserved time capsule of a child from 30 years ago. Model airplanes hung from the ceiling. A bookshelf overflowed with adventure stories. A twin bed with a space-themed comforter sat beneath the window. On the bedside table stood a framed photo of Michael and Emma, their arms linked, identical gap-toothed grins on their faces. Emma's fingertips brushed the framed photo, a physical connection to a past that felt simultaneously distant and immediate. She didn't hear Harold enter the room until he spoke. "He never forgot you," Harold said, steadying himself against the doorframe. "Even after ... everything." Emma turned to face him. "Why did you search for me? After all this time?" Harold gestured toward Michael's desk chair. Emma sat while he lowered himself onto the edge of the bed with visible effort. I promised him, Harold said simply. And I'm a man who keeps his promises, even when they're decades overdue. What promise? Harold's trembling hands settled in his lap. Michael made me swear that if anything ever happened to him, I would find you, and give you something. His voice cracked. I didn't take it seriously then. What parent imagines outliving their child? But after the accident, ... He looked away, gathering himself. I tried to find you. God knows I tried. But the foster system, records were sealed, names changed. By the time I had any leads, you'd vanished into the system. Emma remembered those years, the constant relocations, the name change when she was briefly adopted at 12, then returned to the system with her adoptive family's surname. I never stopped looking, Harold continued. I hired investigators. Over the years, nothing. Then last month, I was reading an article about the nursing shortage at Mercy General, and there you were in a staff photo. He smiled weakly. Your eyes, they're exactly the same. Emma found herself reaching for his trembling hand. What did Michael want me to have? Harold's eyes brightened. Come. He led her to his study, a warm room, lined with bookshelves and medical texts. Inserting a key into an antique desk drawer, he removed a small wooden box, roughly 6 inches square. Emma's name had been carved clumsily into the lid by a child's unpracticed hand. Michael made this, Harold explained. He was working on it that last week. Emma took the box, running her fingers over the childish lettering. There's a lock, she noted, examining the small brass fixture. Yes, Michael said you would know where to find the key. Emma looked up, confused. Me? I don't. He was very specific, Harold insisted. Emma knows where it is. Those were his words. Emma shook her head. I don't remember any key. Harold's expression fell, disappointment etching deeper lines into his aged face. Perhaps it will come to you. Rosa appeared at the doorway. Dr. Green, it's time for your medication. Her sharp gaze assessed Emma before returning to Harold. You look tired. I'm fine, Rosa, Harold protested, but his color had faded. You should rest, Emma said, rising. I can come back tomorrow. Harold nodded reluctantly. Please do. As Rosa helped Harold toward his room, Emma lingered in the study, examining the mysterious box. She tried to recall any mention of a key from their childhood, but 30 years had erased too many details. At the door, Rosa intercepted her. Miss Sullivan, she said quietly, Dr. Green is very ill, terminal cancer, months, perhaps weeks. Her expression softened marginally. Whatever you're looking for here, please don't give him false hopes. He's suffered enough. Emma clutched the box to her chest. I'm not looking for anything. I just want to understand. Rosa studied her for a long moment before nodding once. Tomorrow, then, afternoon. The pediatric ward at Mercy General usually centered Emma, reminding her why she'd become a nurse. Today, though, her mind kept drifting back to Harold's revelation and the mysterious box sitting in her locker. BP's dropping again in 204, called Nurse Martinez, snapping Emma back to the present. On it, Emma replied, hurrying to the room, where a 7-year-old with pneumonia needed attention. That as she adjusted the 4, the child's frightened eyes reminded her of other children, herself included. At Westridge home. Westridge, the memories surged with unexpected clarity. Institutional, green walls, the perpetually damp smell, bedrooms shared with 5 other girls, the caretakers who ranged from indifferent to cruel, with rare exceptions. All better now, Emma assured her patient, smoothing back the girl's hair. Your mom will be back from work soon. The girl nodded, trusting lie. In the break room, Emma found Diane preparing for her shift. You look like hell, Diane observed, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. Thanks, the old man from the cab. Emma nodded, accepting the coffee. I went to see him yesterday. Between sips, she recounted the visit, the preserved bedroom, and the mysterious box. So Michael was his son? Diane asked. And you two were friends at the foster home? Best friends. The only good thing about that place. Emma stared into her coffee. Westridge was not a happy place. The director, Mrs. Hatcher, used isolation as punishment, locked closets. She shuddered. Michael stood up for me once when she tried to put me in there, took the punishment himself, and then he died. How? An accident, they told me. No details. Emma's voice hardened. Foster kids weren't entitled to explanations, but you think it was your fault somehow. Diane's perception was uncomfortably accurate. Emma hesitated. The night before he died, we had a fight. He wanted to tell his dad something about me. and I made him promise not to. I was afraid of being moved again. Her voice dropped. The next day, Mrs. Winters came to tell me he was gone. Emma, you were 8. Whatever happened, wasn't your Emma's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hello, Miss Sullivan. A formal male voice. This is Lawrence Perkins, Dr. Green's attorney. I understand you visited him yesterday. Emma's stomach tightened. Yes, is everything all right? Dr. Green has been admitted to Mercy General following a medical episode. He's asking for you. Emma checked her watch. Her shift ended in 20 minutes. Tell him, I'll be there as soon as I can. She hung up, turning to Diane with growing panic. He's here. In the hospital. Go, Diane said. I'll cover your last rounds. As Emma rushed to change, she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows of Westridge were reaching forward through time, pulling her back into their grasp. She had spent decades building walls between herself and that painful chapter, only to find those walls crumbling in a matter of days. The wooden box weighed heavily in her bag as she headed upstairs to find Harold Green. Harold looked smaller, somehow, diminished against the white hospital sheets. Emma hesitated in the doorway, her nurse's eye cataloging the monitors, the oxygen cannula, the 4 lines delivering pain medication. Emma, his face brightened upon seeing her. You came, of course. She approached the bed, noting Rosa asleep in a chair by the window. What happened? Nothing dramatic. Cancer doesn't go quietly. He gestured weakly toward a chair. Did you bring it? Emma nodded, pulling the wooden box from her bag. I've been thinking about this key all day, but I don't remember anything about it. Harold's fingers tapped anxiously against the blanket. It will come to you. His gaze shifted to Rosa. Would you mind closing the door? I'd prefer some privacy. Emma complied, then returned to his bedside. The doctor says they're keeping you overnight for observation. Observation. Harold chuckled dryly. A polite term for waiting to die. At Emma's pained expression, he softened. I've made my peace with it, my dear, but I need to fulfill my promise to Michael first. His hand reached for hers, surprisingly strong despite the tremors. You were everything to him, you know. His first day home from Westridge, he talked about the brave girl with curly hair who punched Tommy Wells for stealing his lunch. Emma smiled despite herself. Tommy had it coming. Indeed. Harold's eyes crinkled. Michael begged me to help you too, to get you out of that place. Emma's breath caught. What? I was making inquiries. The process was complicated. Before he could continue, the door opened and Rosa entered, instantly alert upon seeing them in conversation. You should be resting, she said to Harold, then turned to Emma. Perhaps you should come back tomorrow. No, Harold said firmly. Emma stays. Rosa, would you get me some water, please? Rosa hesitated, then nodded stiffly. As she left, Harold beckoned Emma closer. She means well, he whispered, but she's been very protective since Elizabeth, my wife, died, even more so after Michael. I understand, Emma said, though the woman's coldness stung. Harold's fingers moved to the wooden box in Emma's lap. Michael was so secretive about this, working on it for hours in his room. His voice grew wistful. The day before the accident, he told me, Dad, if anything ever happens to me, you have to find Emma and give her the box. I laughed it off as childhood dramatics. He said that the day before, Emma felt a chill. Did he know something was going to happen? Harold shook his head. Children say things. I didn't think. His voice cracked. I never imagined it would be the last conversation we'd have. Rosa returned with water, her suspicious gaze moving between them. Thank you, Rosa, Harold said. Would you mind giving us a few more minutes alone? Rosa's lips thinned. 5 minutes. You need rest. When she left, Harold turned urgently to Emma. Tried to remember. The key Michael said you would know. Emma closed her eyes, reaching back through the years. Michael's voice seemed to whisper from distant memories. But the words remained unclear. When she opened her eyes, Harold's expression had changed, his face contorted in sudden pain. Harold. Emma stood, reaching for the call button. No. We gripped her wrist with surprising strength. Just the pain medication wearing off. But Emma recognized the signs. I'm getting a doctor. No, Harold insisted. First, promise me you'll find the key. Promise me you'll open it. I promise, Emma said, already pressing the call button, already knowing it might be a promise she couldn't keep. Emma's professional training took over as Harold's monitors began alarming. She adjusted his oxygen, checked his 4, and was already recording his vital signs when Dr. Patel rushed in. Pressure's dropping, Emma reported. Pulse is thready, Oxygen sat at 89%. Dr. Patel nodded, grateful for her expertise. Mr. Green, can you hear me? Harold's eyes fluttered open, finding Emma's face before focusing on the doctor. Rosa burst in, her face pale with fear. What's happening? Likely a reaction to the pain medication, Dr. Patel explained, administering something through Harold's 4. We're adjusting his dosage. This happened after she arrived, Rosa said, glaring at Emma. She's upsetting him with questions about the past. That's not fair, Emma began, but Dr. Patel interrupted. Everyone out, please. I need space to work. In the hallway, Rosa turned on Emma. He was stable before you came. Whatever you want from him, money, inheritance, you won't get it by killing him faster. The accusation stung like a slap. I don't want anything from him. No. Rosa crossed her arms. Then why appear now, after 30 years? His obituary was in the paper last month. Did you see it? Renowned physician, terminal diagnosis. Very convenient timing, Miss Sullivan. What obituary? He's not dead yet, Emma said, confusion momentarily overshadowing her anger. The Chronicle ran it prematurely, Rosa explained impatiently. They apologized, but it was already published. Emma felt sick. You think I saw an obituary and decided to con a dying man? I didn't even know he was alive until 2 days ago when he recognized me in the rain. Rosa's certainty wavered. He recognized you. Yes. He's been looking for me for years to give me something from Michael. Before Rosa could respond, Dr. Patel emerged. He's stabilized. The cancer is advancing more rapidly than we anticipated. I've adjusted his medication, but she left the implications unspoken. Can I see him? Rosa asked. Briefly. He needs rest. As Rosa entered the room, Emma sank into a waiting room chair, the wooden box a heavy weight in her bag. The key to this mystery remained frustratingly elusive. Everything okay? Diane appeared beside her, still in her scrubs. I heard Dr. Green was admitted. Emma nodded wearily. Cancer, terminal, and I still can't remember anything about this damn key. Diane sat beside her. Maybe you're trying too hard. Memory doesn't work that way, especially childhood trauma. This isn't trauma, Emma protested. Michael was the one good thing from those years, and his death wasn't traumatic. Diane raised an eyebrow. Emma, you've never even mentioned him to me in 15 years of friendship. That's how trauma works, we bury it. Emma fell silent, knowing Diane was right. Have you considered hypnotherapy? Diane suggested. Dr. Levine in Psych uses it for memory recovery. She might help. Hypnosis, that's a bit dramatic. More dramatic than a deathbed promise and a mysterious, locked box. Diane smiled gently. Just a thought. Dr. Patel approached them. Miss Sullivan, Dr. Green is asking for you. How is he? Emma stood, gathering her bag, conscious but declining. We're making him comfortable. Dr. Patel's expression softened. If there's anything important to discuss, I wouldn't delay. Inside the room, Harold lay propped up, oxygen flowing through a nasal cannula. Rosa sat vigilant beside him, her hostility temporarily subdued by worry. Emma, Harold whispered, extending a trembling hand. She took it, surprised by the paper thinness of his skin. The key, he murmured. Remember, try to relax and focus on my voice, Dr. Levine said, her tone measured and calm. You're perfectly safe here. Emma reclined in the comfortable chair in Dr. Levine's office, skeptical but desperate. Diane had arranged the session, calling in a professional favor. I'm going to count backward from 10. Dr. Levine continued. With each number, you'll feel more relaxed, more open to your memories. Emma closed her eyes, trying to surrender to the process. Her analytical mind resisted initially, questioning the science, the technique. But gradually, Dr. Levine's soothing voice penetrated her defenses. You're 8 years old again, Dr. Levine guided. You're at Westridge Home. Can you see it? Suddenly, Emma was there, the faded yellow building with peeling paint, the sparse playground where children competed for limited equipment. Yes, Emma whispered. Find Michael. Where is he? In her mind's eye, Emma saw him instantly, sandy hair falling across his forehead, that gap-toothed smile that appeared even in the worst circumstances. He's at our secret place, Emma said. Under the stairs. We go there when Mrs. Hatcher is angry. What are you doing there? Hiding? Sharing secrets? Emma's consciousness floated between past and present. Michael has something to show me. What is it, Emma? A treasure. He made it himself. Young Emma watched as Michael pulled something from his pakata, small object wrapped in tissue paper. He says it's for me to keep safe. What is it? A key. The memory crystallized with surprising clarity. A tiny key he made in his dad's workshop. He says it's for something special, something just for me. Young Emma took the key, examining the crude but recognizable shape. He says, I need to hide it where no one will find it. Where did you hide it, Emma? In the memory? Young Emma looked around frantically, hearing footsteps approaching their hideout. I put it, double quotes, her adult self struggled to follow the memory. I put it in Dr. Levine's voice, remained steady. Take your time. Where would 8-year-old Emma hide something precious? The answer surfaced suddenly, vividly. Benny. I put it inside Benny. Who is Benny? My rabbit. My stuffed rabbit. The seam was already loose under his arm. I pushed the key inside. The memory was so clear now, the frantic moments, as footsteps approached, the quick decision, the key disappearing into the stuffing of her beloved toy. When I count to 3, you'll return to the present, feeling refreshed and clear, Dr. Levine said. 1, 2, 3. Emma opened her eyes, the office coming back into focus. I remember, she said, sitting up eagerly. The key is in my stuffed rabbit. You've had it all this time. Dr. Levine smiled. The mind is remarkable. Traumatic events can cause us to compartmentalize memories, especially from childhood. I need to go, Emma said, gathering her things. Thank you, Dr. Levine. Back at her apartment, Emma dumped the contents of her childhood box onto the bed, hands trembling as she reached for the one-eyed stuffed rabbit. Benny had seen better days, his blue plush worn thin, stuffing compressed from years of childhood, hugs. Turning him over, Emma found the seam under his right arm, the stitches loose and fraying. Gently, she worked her finger into the opening. Feeling around inside the stuffing, her fingertip touched something hard and metal. Heart pounding, she carefully extracted a small, handmade key, crudely fashioned but unmistakably real. Michael had likely crafted it himself, perhaps with his father's guidance. Emma stared at the tiny key resting in her palm, a physical link to the friend she'd lost 3 decades ago. With shaking hands, she retrieved the wooden box from her bag. The key slid into the lock with a perfect fit. Just as she began to turn it, her phone rang, the hospital's number flashing on the screen. Hello, Ms. Sullivan. This is Nurse Chen from Mercy General. Dr. Green's condition has deteriorated. If you want to see him, you should come now. Emma looked down at the partially turned key, torn between discovering the box's contents and rushing to Harold's side. I'll be right there, she said. Decision made, she carefully returned the key to the lock, placed the box in her bag, and hurried toward the door. The hospital corridor seemed endless as Emma rushed toward Harold's room. The ICU was quieter at night, the hushed voices of the night shift nurses, punctuated by the steady beeping of monitors. Rosa sat outside Harold's room, her face drawn with exhaustion. She looked up as Emma approached, too tired for hostility. He's been asking for you, she said simply. Emma nodded, steeling herself before entering. Harold lay propped against pillows, his breathing labored despite the oxygen. His eyes, though clouded with medication, brightened when he saw her. Emma, he whispered, the key. I found it, she said, sitting beside him and taking his hand. It was in my stuffed rabbit all along. Relief washed over his features. Good, that's good. I haven't opened it yet, Emma admitted. I came straight here when they called. Harold's fingers tightened around hers with surprising strength. There's something you should know first. About Michael. About what really happened. Emma's heart stuttered. What do you mean? Harold took a shaky breath. It wasn't an accident. Not entirely. The world seemed to tilt beneath Emma. For 30 years, she'd carried the vague explanation, an accident without details, without closure. Michael was trying to get back to Westridge that night. Harold continued, each word an effort. To see you, me. But why? He had news, important news. Harold's gaze drifted toward the window, where dawn was beginning to lighten the sky. We'd had a conversation that day, about you. Emma leaned closer, pulse racing. What about me? You were scheduled to be transferred to another home, across the state. Harold's eyes refocused on her face. Michael overheard Mrs. Winters telling me he was devastated. A forgotten memory surfaced, Michael's unusual agitation the last time she saw him. His insistence that they would always be together, no matter what. He snuck out that night, Harold continued, past midnight, took his bicycle. It was raining, the roads were slick. His voice caught. A driver didn't see him at the intersection by Maple Street. Emma closed her eyes, the pieces falling into place. Michael had been trying to reach her, to tell her about the transfer, perhaps to make a plan. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "If I had known—" "No," Harold interrupted firmly. "It wasn't your fault. It was mine. Yours. How could it possibly?" "I was never there for him," Harold said, self-recrimination hardening his voice. "Always working, always at the hospital. After Elizabeth died, I buried myself in research, in patients." Michael practically raised himself. Emma shook her head. "He adored you. He always talked about how brilliant his dad was, how you saved lives. But I wasn't saving his life, was I? I wasn't even paying attention." Harold's breathing grew more labored that night. "If I'd checked on him before bed, instead of reviewing case files." The door opened as a nurse entered to check Harold's vitals. Behind her came Rosa, accompanied by a tall man in an expensive suit. "That's enough for now," Rosa said firmly. "Dr. Green needs rest." Rosa, Harold protested weakly. "She's right," the man said, stepping forward. "Your blood pressure is concerning, Harold." He turned to Emma. "Lawrence Perkins, Dr. Green's attorney. I'm afraid we need to limit his stress at this point." Emma stood reluctantly. "I'll come back tomorrow." "Emma," Harold called as she reached the door. "The box. Open it. Then you'll understand." Rosa's expression hardened as she ushered Emma out. "I think you've upset him enough for one day, Miss Sullivan." Emma left, clutching her bag containing the wooden box, her mind reeling with Harold's revelation. Michael had died trying to reach her. The knowledge settled like a stone in her chest as she walked through the hospital's automatic doors into the cool morning air. Emma's apartment felt unusually quiet as she placed the wooden box on her kitchen table. Morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the childish carving of her name on the lid. She inserted the small key with trembling fingers. It turned with a soft click, the lock mechanism releasing after 30 years of waiting. Emma hesitated, one hand on the lid. What could be so important that Michael had ensured its safekeeping even in death? What secrets could an 8-year-old boy possibly have that would matter 3 decades later? Taking a deep breath, she lifted the lid. Inside lay an assortment of childhood treasures, carefully arranged. A folded piece of construction paper sat on top. Emma opened it to find a crayon drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands, one with wild curly hair, the other with a gap-toothed smile. "Emma and Michael Forever" was written across the top in uneven block letters. Beneath the drawing was a friendship bracelet woven from embroidery, thread blue and green, her favorite colors. Emma remembered making it during craft time, Michael watching intently as she explained the pattern. Next came a small collection of flattened pennies they had placed on the railroad tracks behind Westridge, giggling as they imagined the train squashing their secret treasures. Her throat tightened as she uncovered each item, tokens of a friendship that had meant everything to 2 lonely children. But nothing seemed to explain Harold's urgency or Michael's foresight in creating this time capsule. Then, at the bottom of the box, Emma found a folded document. She opened it carefully, the paper yellowed with age. It was an adoption application, partially completed. Harold Green's name was listed as the prospective parent. And there, in the space for the child's name, Emma Sullivan. Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Harold had been planning to adopt her. All those years ago. Clipped to the application was a handwritten note on Harold's medical office stationery: inquiry regarding E. Sullivan's placement status, considering joint adoption with M. Green. Preliminary approval looks promising. Discuss with Michael tomorrow. The note was dated the day before Michael's death. Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks as the full weight of the revelation hit her. She could have had a family. She could have been Michael's sister. If not for that rainy night, that bicycle, that intersection, her entire life might have taken a different path. Beneath the adoption papers lay one final item, a letter written in a child's careful handwriting on lined notebook paper. "Dear Emma, Dad says we might get to be real brother and sister. He's going to adopt you too, so you don't have to go to the new place. It's a secret right now, but I'm going to tell you tomorrow at our secret place. Don't tell anyone yet. I put our special things in this box for you. Dad helped me make it. I made the key myself in Dad's workshop. If you're reading this, it means you found the key. I knew you would because you're the smartest person I know. Don't forget about our secret place. There's treasure there too. Your best friend and maybe brother." Emma read the letter 3 times, tears blurring her vision. The innocent hope in those childish words broke her heart anew. Michael had been so excited to tell her they would be siblings, had prepared this box as a celebration of their future together. A future that never came. The last line caught her attention again. Don't forget about our secret place. There's treasure there too. Their hideout at Westridge was something still there. After all these years, the building had been abandoned for at least a decade, slated for demolition, according to local news. Emma wiped her eyes, a new determination forming. She needed to go back to Westridge one last time. Westridge Home for Children stood at the end of a weed-choked driveway, its once imposing facade now crumbling from neglect. Chain-link fencing surrounded the property, topped with faded "no trespassing" signs. A larger notice announced the building's impending demolition scheduled for next month. Emma parked across the street, studying the abandoned structure that had housed so many painful memories. Yellow caution tape crossed the main entrance, but she noticed a section of fence pulled away on the east side. Just one last visit, she murmured, gathering her courage. She slipped through the gap in the fence, approaching the building with growing trepidation. The front doors were boarded up, but a side entrance hung partially open, its lock long since broken by urban explorers or shelter-seeking transients. Inside, the institutional green walls were now peeling, exposing layers of paint from different eras. Shafts of sunlight pierced through broken windows, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. The silence felt oppressive after the childhood cacophony that once filled these halls. Children crying, laughing, fighting, living. Mr. moved cautiously, avoiding debris and testing each step on the creaking floors. Despite the building's deterioration, she navigated the hallways with muscle memory, turning left at the former administration office, right at what had been the communal dining hall. The stairs to the second floor had collapsed in one section, but enough remained intact for Emma to climb carefully, holding the railing with both hands. At the top, she paused, orienting herself. East wing, she whispered, turning right. The narrow hallway led to the dormitories where Emma had spent 2 years of her childhood. Unlike the institutional spaces below, these rooms felt smaller than she remembered, claustrophobic spaces where 6 children had been crammed into 3 sets of bunk beds. Emma wasn't here for the dormitories, though. She continued past them toward an unassuming door at the end of the hall, a maintenance closet that concealed the entrance to the attic. The door was locked, but the wood around the handle had rotted. Emma pushed harder, and it gave way with a splintering crack. Beyond lay a narrow staircase leading upward into darkness. Emma pulled out her phone, activating its flashlight before ascending the stairs. The attic space was stifling, the summer heat trapped beneath the rafters. Dust and cobwebs coated every surface, but Emma moved with purpose toward the far corner. There, behind a chimney stack, was their secret place, a small alcove formed by the intersection of roof beams and wall. It had seemed so much larger when they were children, a vast cave for their imaginations. Now, Emma had to crouch to enter the space. "Please still be here," she whispered, running her hands along the base of the wall. Her fingers found what she was looking for, a loose board that Michael had discovered on their 3rd day of friendship. Behind it lay a small cavity in the wall, their secret vault. Emma carefully removed the board, shining her light into the opening. There, preserved in the darkness, sat a glass jar. She reached in and retrieved it, wiping away decades of dust. Inside were their most precious childhood treasures, a marble, a small plastic dinosaur, folded notes they'd passed in class. But atop these mementos lay something Emma didn't recognize, a carefully folded newspaper clipping. She opened it gently, the yellowed paper threatening to crumble at the creases. It was an article from the Chronicle, dated a week before Michael's death. Local physician receives Bremen Award for pediatric research. The article featured a photo of a younger Harold Green accepting an award, smiling proudly at the camera. The text described his groundbreaking research in pediatric immunology, specifically his work on a rare condition affecting children. Emma frowned, confused. Why had Michael hidden this article? What was the significance? She read further, her breath catching at a specific paragraph. Dr. Green's revolutionary treatment protocol has shown remarkable success in clinical trials. Patient X, once given mere months to live, has now been symptom-free for over a year. A result Dr. Green calls nothing short of miraculous. Emma's hand trembled as she folded the clipping and placed it in her pocket alongside Michael's letter. An inexplicable connection was forming in her mind, a theory so improbable it seemed absurd. She needed to get back to the hospital. She needed to talk to Harold. Emma sat in her car outside Westridge, the newspaper clipping spread on the steering wheel. She reread it carefully, focusing on the details of Harold's research: a rare autoimmune disorder affecting children between ages 4 and 10, causing progressive organ failure. The article mentioned Harold's unorthodox but effective approach that had reversed the condition in at least one documented case. A memory surfaced: Emma, at age 7. Hospitalized for months with an illness the doctors couldn't identify. Constant tests, rotating specialists, hushed conversations outside her room. Then, mysteriously, recovery. She had been at Children's Memorial before coming to Westridge. The timing aligned with Harold's research period. Emma started the car, but instead of heading to the hospital, she drove to Mercy General's medical library. Using her staff credentials, she accessed the digital archives, searching for Harold Green's published research. The results were impressive: dozens of papers, spanning for decades, focused primarily on pediatric autoimmune disorders. Emma zeroed in on publications from around the time she would have been hospitalized. There it was: Novel Treatment Protocol for Juvenile Autoimmune Polyneuropathy, a case study. The publication date matched the newspaper article. Emma downloaded the paper, skimming the abstract. It detailed a revolutionary treatment approach for an extremely rare condition affecting fewer than 1 in a million children. The case study focused on a single patient identified only as Patient X, who had shown complete remission following the experimental protocol. The paper included minimal demographic information about Patient X: female, age 7, previous failed treatments, orphan status. The coincidence seemed too perfect to ignore. Emma picked up her phone and called Diane. "I need a favor," she said when Diane answered. "Can you access sealed medical records from Children's Memorial?" "Possibly," Diane replied cautiously. "Why?" "I need to see my records from when I was 7. A pause. "That's highly irregular, Emma. Those would be archived, possibly even on paper, and accessing them without cause could cost me my job." "I think I was part of an experimental treatment," Emma explained, "by Harold Green." The silence stretched longer this time. "Come to my office," Diane finally said. "Give me an hour." Emma arrived at Mercy General to find Diane waiting with a grim expression. "What you're suggesting would be a serious ethical violation," Diane said once they were alone in her office. "Using an orphaned child for experimental treatment without proper oversight." "I'm not accusing him of anything," Emma clarified. "I just need to know if it's true." Diane nodded, turning to her computer. "I called in a favor with records at Children's Memorial. Your file was digitized 5 years ago during their system update." She typed for several minutes, navigating through security protocols. Finally, she turned the screen toward Emma. "Emma Sullivan, admitted September 12, 1994, primary diagnosis, idiopathic autoimmune polyneuropathy, attending physician. Double quotes." Diane paused. "Dr. Harold Green, brought in as consulting specialist." Emma's heart raced as she scrolled through the records. Treatment notes described her deteriorating condition, failed standard protocols, and then a gap: 2 weeks with minimal documentation, followed by notes describing her remarkable improvement and eventual discharge to Westridge home. "There's something missing," Emma said, pointing to the gap. "The actual treatment isn't documented." Diane nodded grimly. "That's not standard practice. Every treatment should be recorded." Emma continued reading. A note from a nurse mentioned Dr. Green's special protocol and off-site treatment facility. Another referenced pending paperwork for experimental approval. "He used an experimental treatment on me," Emma whispered, "without documentation. But it worked," Diane pointed out. "Whatever he did, it saved your life." Emma sat back, processing the implications. Michael must have found out somehow. That's why he hid the article. "So Harold Green saved your life. Then his son befriended you at the foster home by coincidence." Diane sounded skeptical. "Not coincidence," Emma said slowly. "What if he placed Michael at Westridge deliberately, to check on me, to monitor the treatment's effects?" The theory sounded far-fetched even as she voiced it, yet it would explain so much. "You need to talk to him," Diane said, "while you still can." Emma nodded, gathering the printouts. "Thank you for this." "Emma," Diane called as she reached the door. "Whatever his reasons, the man saved your life. Remember that when you confront him." Evening shadows stretched across the Green mansion as Emma parked in the circular driveway. She needed answers from Harold. but the hospital had informed her he'd been discharged to home hospice care that afternoon. His condition stabilized but prognosis unchanged. Rosa answered the door, her expression hardening at the sight of Emma. "He's resting," she said firmly, blocking the entrance. "I need to speak with him," Emma replied, clutching her folder of medical records. "Tomorrow, perhaps." Rosa began to close the door. Emma wedged her foot in the gap. "It's about patient X, about the experimental treatment." Rosa froze, color draining from her face. After a moment, she opened the door wider. "Come in," she said, her voice barely audible. In the formal living room. Rosa gestured for Emma to sit, but remained standing herself, arms crossed defensively. "You know about it," Emma said. "It wasn't a question. I was his head nurse for 40 years, Rosa replied stiffly. "I assisted with all his research." Emma opened her folder, laying out the evidence, her medical records, Harold's research paper, the newspaper clipping. "It was me, wasn't it? I was patient X." Rosa's shoulders slumped slightly, the first crack in her formidable facade. "You were dying," she said simply. "Conventional treatments had failed. You had weeks, maybe days. So he used an protocol without proper authorization," Emma pressed. "He saved your life," Rosa countered, heat returning to her voice. "When every other doctor had given up, Harold refused to let another child die. He'd already developed just hadn't cleared the regulatory hurdles yet. That's still unethical, illegal." Rosa laughed bitterly. "You think he doesn't know that? He risked his entire career to save you. If it had failed, he would have lost everything: his license, his reputation, possibly faced criminal charges." Emma absorbed this, struggling to reconcile her gratitude with the ethical violation, and Michael Voss's placement at Westridge planned too. Rosa sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of her years. "No, that truly was coincidence. Harold had arranged your transfer to Westridge because it was close enough for him to monitor your progress. Michael was placed there temporarily during a renovation at his boarding school, but they became friends," Emma said. "Best friends," Rosa nodded. "Michael came home talking about this brilliant girl with curly hair who stood up to bullies. Harold nearly had a heart attack when he realized it was you." "Did Michael know about me being his father's patient?" Rosa hesitated. "Not at first. But that boy was too smart for his own good. He found papers in Harold's study, connected the dots, and the adoption application. That was Michael's idea," Rosa admitted. "He begged Harold to adopt you, to keep you from being transferred again. Harold was already considering it. He felt responsible for you. And after Elizabeth, after years of watching Michael grow up lonely, double quotes, Emma tried to process everything. So when Michael died, Harold was devastated, blamed himself entirely." Rosa's voice caught. "He tried to find you afterward, but the system had already moved you." Then his grief. "He wasn't functioning for almost a year, but he never stopped looking," Emma said softly. "Never." Rosa wiped at her eyes. "For 30 years, he searched. Every time he saw a curly-haired nurse, he looked twice." Emma studied the woman who had been so hostile just days before. "Why were you so suspicious of me?" Rosa sighed. "People have tried to exploit Harold's wealth before, and this search for you, it became his obsession, especially after his diagnosis. I needed to protect him." "I'm not here for his money," Emma said firmly. "I know that now." Rosa stood, smoothing her skirt. "He's awake, second door on the left, upstairs. He'll want to tell you everything himself." The master bedroom had been converted into a hospice suite, medical equipment arranged discreetly around a hospital bed. Large windows overlooked the garden, where evening light gilded the flowers in gold. Harold sat propped against pillows, looking more alert than Emma had expected. A nurse checking his vital signs nodded to Emma before quietly exiting. "You opened the box," Harold said, noting the folder in her hands. "And I went back to Westridge," Emma replied, settling into a chair beside him. "I found Michael's other treasure." She placed the newspaper clipping on the bed. Harold picked it up with trembling fingers, recognition dawning in his eyes. "So now you know," he said softly. "Not everything," Emma countered. "I'd like to hear it from you." Harold nodded, adjusting himself higher against the pillows. "Where to begin?" "The beginning, I suppose." He described finding Emma at Children's Memorial during his rounds, a small, fierce girl, with curly hair, who fought the nurses during blood draws but never cried. "Your case fascinated me medically, but your spirit, double quotes," Harold smiled. You reminded me of Elizabeth. The same determination. As Emma's condition deteriorated, Harold had grown desperate. The treatment protocol he'd developed showed promise in lab tests but remained months away from approval for human trials. You didn't have months, he said simply. So, I made a choice. Working with Rosa and 2 trusted colleagues, Harold administered the experimental treatment in a private facility, documenting everything meticulously but keeping it separate from official records. Technically, you were receiving supportive care at Children's while we treated you elsewhere, Harold explained. If it failed, my career would end. If it worked, it had worked. Within weeks, Emma's condition reversed dramatically. Harold arranged her placement at Westridge to keep her nearby for monitoring. Then Michael was temporarily placed there during his school's renovation. Harold continued. When he started talking about his new friend Emma, I couldn't believe the coincidence. I asked the social worker to confirm it was you. Michael discovered the truth. Emma prompted. Harold nodded. He found my research journal, confronted me, furious I hadn't told him. That's when he began lobbying for your adoption. You are actually going to adopt me? Emma asked, still struggling to believe it. The paperwork was in process, Harold confirmed. I'd already spoken with Mrs. Winters about the possibility, but then... His voice faltered. Emma reached for his hand. Michael was desperate to tell you, Harold continued. I asked him to wait until it was certain foster care decisions can change rapidly. The night the accident. He'd overheard me speaking with Mrs. Winters about your pending transfer. He was coming to tell me we'd be siblings, Emma whispered. He didn't want you to worry about the transfer. Wanted to give you hope. Harold's eyes filled with tears. After we lost him, I tried to continue the adoption process, but grief, it consumes you. By the time I could function again, you'd been moved. The system protected your privacy. New homes, possibly a new name. Sullivan is my original name, Emma explained. I was adopted at 12 by the Sullivans, but they returned me to the system after 2 years. I kept their name. Harold closed his eyes briefly, absorbing another piece of her difficult history. I never stopped looking, he said, even when it seemed impossible. And now you've found me, Emma said gently. Harold nodded, his expression clearing as if a great weight had lifted. I kept my promise to Michael, and to myself. Why didn't you tell me all this when we first met? Would you have believed such a story from a strange old man? Harold asked. I needed you to remember Michael first, to find the key yourself. Emma considered this, then nodded. Thank you, for saving my life, for looking for me all these years. Harold smiled weakly. We've come full circle. Emma Sullivan, now I can rest. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma balanced her nursing shifts with daily visits to the Green Mansion. Harold's condition stabilized temporarily, what doctors called the final rally before the inevitable decline. During these precious days, Harold shared the full scope of his research with Emma. His treatment protocol, refined after her case, had eventually gained approval and saved thousands of children worldwide. But there were still limitations, still children being lost. I've continued the research, Harold explained one afternoon, as they sat in the sunroom. Refinements, improvements. But there's more to be done. He gestured toward a leather portfolio on the side table. Emma retrieved it, opening the clasp to find legal documents and research notes. The Green Foundation for Pediatric Research, she read from the letterhead. My legacy. Harold nodded. We fund research, treatment for families who can't afford it, support for medical students interested in rare pediatric disorders. He tapped the papers with a trembling finger. I'd like you to take over. Emma looked up, startled. Me, but I'm not a Dr. Mim, just a nurse. You're hardly just anything, Emma. Harold replied with a hint of his former sharpness. You've more practical medical knowledge than half the board members, and you understand, firsthand, what these children experience. When Emma hesitated, Harold continued, the foundation needs someone who cares about the patients, not just the science, someone who sees children, not case studies. I don't know the first thing about running a foundation, Emma protested. Rosa will help. Lawrence too. They've managed it with me for years. Harold leaned forward earnestly. Your nursing experience gives you insight that pure researchers lack. You can bridge the gap between laboratory and bedside. Emma leafed through the documents, overwhelmed by their complexity, but touched by Harold's faith in her. There's something else, Harold said, reaching for a drawer in his bedside table. He removed a journal bound in worn leather. My personal research notes, 30 years of observations and theories. Some have been published, but many haven't. Ideas for conventional funding. He pressed the journal into Emma's hands. This might save more lives someday. Emma accepted it reverently, understanding the trust this represented. I'll make sure it does. Later that evening, as Emma prepared to leave, Rosa intercepted her in the hallway. Her earlier hostility replaced by grudging respect. He's never trusted anyone with that journal, Rosa said, nodding toward the book in Emma's bag. Not even me. I don't know if I can live up to his expectations, Emma admitted. You already have, Rosa replied simply. By surviving, by thriving despite everything life threw at you, by becoming someone who helps others. She hesitated, then added, I've worked with Harold for 40 years. I know his research, his methods. If you decide to take on the foundation, I would stay on. Help you learn. Emma studied the older woman, recognizing the olive branch being extended. I'd appreciate that, Rosa. 2 days later, Harold took a turn for the worse. Emma arranged emergency leave from the hospital, spending hours at his bedside as his systems began failing, one by one. During a rare moment of clarity, Harold gripped Emma's hand with surprising strength. You'll continue it? He asked, his voice barely audible. The research? Yes, Emma promised. The foundation to Harold shook his head slightly. No. Michael's legacy, the box, the promise. Emma understood suddenly. Harold had fulfilled his promise to Michael by finding her. Now he was asking her to carry forward that connection, that commitment to memory. I will, she vowed. I'll make you both proud. Harold's lips curved in a faint smile. You already have, he whispered, echoing Rosa's words. My daughter in all, but Neem. The word daughter lingered in the air between them, acknowledgement of what might have been, what still was in the ways that mattered most. Harold Green passed peacefully in his sleep 3 days later, Emma holding one hand and Rosa the other. Though they had anticipated the moment, its finality still struck Emma with unexpected force. The closing of a circle that had begun 3 decades earlier. The funeral was held at the city's largest cathedral, attended by hundreds of former patients, medical colleagues, researchers whose work Harold had funded. Emma sat in the front row beside Rosa, both women somber in black. During the eulogy, delivered by the chief of medicine at Mercy General, Emma's gaze was drawn repeatedly to the framed photograph beside the casket, Harold with Michael, both smiling broadly on what must have been the boy's last birthday. He found his peace, Rosa whispered, noticing Emma's focus. Finding you, it completed something for him. After the service, Lawrence Perkins approached Emma. Dr. Green left instructions for the reading of his will tomorrow, he said. He was quite specific about the timing. The following day, Emma returned to the Green mansion. The formal dining room had been converted into a makeshift conference room, with Lawrence at the head of the table. Besides Emma and Rosa, 5 board members from the Green Foundation were present. The proceedings were surprisingly straightforward. Harold had updated his will just days before his death, with meticulous attention to detail. The bulk of his considerable estate was divided between medical research endowments and the foundation that bore his name. To Emma Sullivan, Lawrence read, adjusting his glasses. I leave the directorship of the Green Foundation for Pediatric Research, with all associated responsibilities and privileges. Additionally, I leave my personal residence and the sum of $10 million to be used at her discretion. Emma gasped, unprepared for the magnitude of the bequest. Murmurs arose from the board members, quickly silenced by Lawrence's raised hand. Dr. Green has left a letter explaining his decisions, Lawrence continued, removing an envelope from his briefcase. He asked that it be read aloud today. In Harold's precise handwriting, the letter outlined his reasons. How Emma's unique perspective, as both patient and healthcare provider, would benefit the foundation. How her compassion balanced her clinical knowledge. How she represented the living embodiment of his life's work. Emma Sullivan was my son's best friend, Lawrence read, his voice softening at the personal turn. Had circumstances been different, she would have been my daughter. I consider it one of life's great mercies that we found each other again, allowing me to fulfill my promise to Michael and to close this circle before my departure. When the reading concluded, the board members approached Emma, one by one, offering condolences and cautious welcome. Their initial skepticism was tempered by Harold's explicit confidence in her abilities. In the days that followed, Emma took a leave of absence from nursing to begin the overwhelming process of learning the foundation's operations. Rosa proved an invaluable guide, her decades of experience complementing Emma's fresh perspective. He kept every note about your case, Rosa explained one afternoon, showing Emma a locked cabinet in Harold's study. 30 years of follow-up observations. You were his proof of concept, evidence that his approach worked long-term. I was his guinea pig, Emma said, but without rancor. You were his miracle, Rosa corrected. And Michael's friend. 2 reasons he could never forget you. One evening, exploring the mansion that was now inexplicably hers, Emma discovered Harold's journal, documenting his decades-long search for her, entries spanning 30 years, recorded dead ends, false leads, private investigators' reports, all in Harold's increasingly shaky handwriting. The final entry, dated just weeks before his death, read simply, "Found her. My promise to Michael, fulfilled at last. Now I can rest." Emma closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. She had spent her life feeling unwanted, passed between homes, never belonging anywhere. Now she discovered she had been searched for, waited for 30 years. It was time to honor that dedication by carrying forward the work Harold had entrusted to her, saving children's lives, as hers had been saved. 6 months later, Emma stood at the podium in the newly renovated Green Foundation headquarters, addressing the board and staff at their quarterly meeting. The Sullivan Scholarship for Foster Children in Medicine officially launches next month, she announced. We've secured partnerships with 5 medical schools and 3 nursing programs. Each year, 10 children from the foster system will receive full educational funding and mentorship. Applause filled the room. In the front row, Rosa nodded approvingly, her silver hair elegantly styled for the occasion. Additionally, Emma continued, our outreach program has identified 12 children nationwide with variations of the autoimmune disorder. Dr. Green pioneered treatment for all 12 are now receiving care through our funding. After the meeting, Emma collected her things, saying goodbye to staff members who had gradually accepted her leadership. Her nursing background had indeed proved invaluable, helping bridge communication gaps between researchers and clinicians. Don't forget your 3 o'clock. Rosa reminded her as Emma prepared to leave the cemetery. I remember. The drive to Evergreen Memorial took 20 minutes. Emma parked near the Green family plot, where fresh flowers already adorned Harold's grave. Rosa's weekly tribute. But Emma wasn't there for Harold today. She continued to the adjacent headstone, smaller but equally well maintained. Michael James, Green beloved son and friend. His light shines on. Emma knelt beside the grave, placing a small wooden box before the headstone. Inside lay a collection of treasures from their secret hideout, preserved and protected for 3 decades. I found your clues, Michael, she said softly. I opened the box. I'm keeping our promises. The autumn breeze rustled the nearby trees, a peaceful sound in the quiet cemetery. Your dad and I found each other, just like you wanted, Emma continued. A little late, but we did. She smiled sadly. He told me about the adoption plans, how you were so excited to tell me we'd be siblings. Emma traced the letters of Michael's name on the cool stone. In a way, it still happened. Your dad left me everything, the foundation, the house. I'm carrying on your family's work. She had visited weekly since Harold's funeral, slowly processing 30 years of unresolved grief. The guilt that had haunted her, the childish belief that their argument had somehow caused Michael's death, was finally fading. I'm helping kids like us, she told the silent stone, foster children who need a chance, medical students who'll save lives like your dad did. It's a good legacy. From her purse, Emma removed a faded friendship bracelet, blue and green threads now fragile with age. I found this in your box, she said. I made a new one. She placed a fresh bracelet, woven in the same pattern, beside the weathered one. Still best friends. Back at the foundation offices, Emma met with her final appointment of the day, a 7-year-old girl with curly hair and suspicious eyes, recently diagnosed with the same rare condition Emma had survived. Amy, this is Ms. Sullivan, the social worker introduced them. She runs our foundation and had the same condition when she was your age. The girl looked up skeptically. Did it hurt? Sometimes, Emma answered honestly. But the treatments we have now are better than what I had. And you're stronger than you think. How do you know? Amy challenged. Emma smiled, recognizing her own childhood defensiveness. Because I was just like you. And because someone very special once taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared, means doing what's right even when you are scared. As they talked, Emma recognized in Amy the same determination she'd once had, the quality Harold had noticed during his hospital rounds 30 years ago. Later, driving home to the Green Mansion, her home now, though it still felt strange to think of it that way, Emma reflected on the circular nature of life. Harold had saved her, physically and perhaps spiritually. Michael had given her friendship when she needed it most. Now she could do the same for other children. At a red light, Emma glanced at her purse, where Michael's wooden box now lived. Inside lay his letter, the adoption papers, and the newspaper clipping, reminders of what was lost and what was found. The light turned green. Emma drove forward, carrying both Michael's memory and Harold's legacy into whatever the future might hold.